The golden invitation. Sophia Patel's fingers danced across her keyboard with practiced precision, her eyes flicking between three monitors as she managed Nathaniel Reeves's impossibly complex schedule. Outside, the floor-to-ceiling windows of Horizon, Technology's headquarters, Seattle's skyline glistened under rare autumn sunshine, but Sophia hadn't spared it a glance in hours. Mr. Reeves needs the Bennett contracts revised by 3. The investor presentation needs updated projections, and his mother's birthday gift needs tracking, she murmured to herself, adding each item to her meticulously organized task manager. At 28, Sophia had spent 4 years as executive assistant to one of the world's most demanding billionaires. Nathaniel Reeves had revolutionized quantum computing before turning 30 and had since expanded into sustainable energy, medical technology, and space exploration. Worth nearly $40 billion, he was known for his brilliant mind, exacting standards, and almost pathological privacy. He was also, at this moment, standing silently in her doorway. "Mr. Reeves!" Sophia straightened in her chair. "I didn't hear you. The Bennett contracts will be on your desk within the hour." Nathaniel Reeves was 36, tall and lean, with perpetually tousled dark hair and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they observed. Unlike many tech CEOs who affected casual hoodies and sneakers, Nathaniel dressed impeccably in tailored clothing that complemented his reserved demeanor. "The contracts can wait," he said, his voice quiet but commanding. "I need to discuss the Aureus Gala." The annual Aureus Gala was the pinnacle of the tech world's social calendar, an exclusive gathering of industry titans, investors, and celebrities held at the historic Thornfield estate overlooking the Pacific. Sophia had already handled all arrangements for Nathaniel's attendance next week. "Of course, your speech is finalized, the jet is scheduled for Friday at 4 p.m., and your suite at the Ellison is confirmed. I've also prepared briefing notes on key attendees and arranged your meetings with Westlake Ventures, and I want you to attend with me." Sophia's fingers froze above her keyboard. In 4 years, Nathaniel had never brought a +1 to any event. He attended, networked efficiently, and departed early. A routine as predictable as his preference for Earl Grey tea at precisely 2 p.m. each day. You want me at the gala?" she asked carefully. Something shifted in Nathaniel's expression, the barest hint of amusement. "Does that surprise you?" "Frankly, yes. You've never required staff at social functions." "You're not staff at this event, Sophia. You're my guest." She blinked rapidly, trying to process this deviation from 4 years of established patterns. "May I ask why?" Nathaniel crossed to the window, hands clasped behind his back as he finally acknowledged the view she had ignored all day. "You've worked 16-hour days for 4 years. You've never complained, never made excuses, never failed to anticipate what I need before I know I need it." He turned to face her. "You deserve recognition beyond a performance bonus." Sophia felt oddly unsettled. Their professional relationship worked precisely because of its clear boundaries. "I appreciate that, but there's something else." Nathaniel reached into his jacket and withdrew a small envelope of heavy cream paper with gold embossing. He placed it on her desk. "This is your formal invitation. I'll have my tailor contact you. Choose whatever you like." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving only the envelope and the lingering scent of his subtle cologne. With trembling fingers, Sophia opened it, finding not just an invitation, but a handwritten note. "There are things about you I've observed that others have not. Perhaps it's time the world saw what I see." She sank back in her chair, wondering what exactly Nathaniel Reeves thought he saw in his efficient, unremarkable assistant, and why, after 4 years of professional distance, he had suddenly decided to look. Whispers among diamonds. The Thornfield estate loomed against the twilight sky, its historic limestone facade illuminated by strategic lighting that highlighted its grandeur without betraying its age, much like many of its guests, Sophia thought wryly. She sat beside Nathaniel in his Bentley as they approached the circular drive, her hands nervously smoothing the midnight blue silk of her gown. "Breathe, Sophia," Nathaniel said, his eyes on the procession of vehicles ahead. "You look like you're heading to an execution rather than the most exclusive party on the West Coast." "I'm fine," she insisted, though her stomach performed elaborate acrobatics. The couture gown Nathaniel's stylist had selected fit her perfectly, off-shoulder with delicate beadwork that caught the light when she moved. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant updo, exposing the graceful line of her neck and the modest diamond earrings she'd borrowed from her mother. "You're not fine. You're terrified." A rare smile touched Nathaniel's lips. "Which is unnecessary. You belong here as much as anyone." Before she could question this puzzling assertion, their car reached the entrance. The door opened, and Nathaniel emerged, buttoning his tuxedo jacket with practiced ease. He extended his hand to her, and as cameras flashed, Sophia realized with horror that they were being photographed. She was accustomed to invisibility, to being the shadow behind Nathaniel Reeves, not the woman on his arm. "Mr. Reeves," called a reporter, "who's your companion tonight?" Nathaniel's hand pressed reassuringly against her lower back as he guided her forward. "This is Sophia Patel." The reporter waited for elaboration. Girlfriend, fiancé, some explanation, but Nathaniel offered none. Striding forward with Sophia at his side, the grand ballroom of Thornfield Estate was a symphony of crystal, gold, and floral arrangements so elaborate they seemed to defy gravity. Sophia recognized faces from magazine covers and television. Tech moguls, venture capitalists, celebrities who had invested early in successful startups. Under normal circumstances, she would have been mentally reviewing Nathaniel's briefing, notes, anticipating which connections he should prioritize. Tonight, she was adrift. "Nathaniel!" A woman in her 50s approached, dripping in emeralds that complemented her green eyes. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming." "Vivienne." Nathaniel nodded politely. "You remember my executive assistant, Sophia Patel?" Vivienne Bennett, CEO of Bennett Biomedical and one of the few women in Nathaniel's exclusive circle, looked Sophia up and down with undisguised surprise. "Of course. Though I believe this is the first time I've seen you outside the office, Miss Patel." "Sophia is my guest tonight," Nathaniel said, with a subtle emphasis that didn't escape either woman. How unexpected. Vivienne's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I assumed you'd bring Eliza Winters. The rumors about you two have been quite persistent." "Rumors rarely interest me," Nathaniel replied coolly. "If you'll excuse us, I see Takashi has arrived. We have matters to discuss." As they moved through the crowd, Sophia felt the weight of stares and whispers trailing behind them. Tech journalists and socialites observed them with open curiosity, while executives who normally barely acknowledged her existence now scrutinized her with calculation, as if reconfiguring her place in their mental hierarchies. "Everyone is staring," she murmured to Nathaniel as he handed her a champagne flute. "People stare at what they don't understand." He surveyed the room with detached interest. "They're trying to determine if you're my lover, a strategic date, or if I've lost my mind." Sophia nearly choked on her champagne. "And which is it?" His expression remained impassive, but something warmed in his dark eyes. "None of the above." The evening progressed with dinner at assigned tables. Sophia found herself seated beside Nathaniel at the head table with industry luminaries. Conversation flowed around her, discussions of markets and mergers, vacation homes and vintage wines, while she focused on not using the wrong fork. Occasionally, Nathaniel would draw her into conversations, mentioning projects she had coordinated, or referencing her insights on certain business matters. "Is this some sort of social experiment, Nathaniel?" asked Dominic Asher, a venture capitalist known for his ruthless investment strategies. "Bringing your assistant to observe how the other half-lives?" The table fell uncomfortably silent. Sophia stared at her plate, feeling her cheeks burn. "If I wanted to conduct an experiment," Nathaniel replied, his voice soft but cutting, "I would have chosen a subject less valuable to me than Miss Patel." Before anyone could recover from this unexpected declaration, the evening's host, Carlton, Thornfield himself, approached the microphone on the small stage where a string quartet had been playing ambient music. "Distinguished guests, I regret to inform you that our planned entertainment for tonight, the renowned pianist Emilia Devereaux, has been delayed due to mechanical issues with her flight from Vienna." Murmurs of disappointment rippled through the crowd. However, the evening needn't lack cultural enrichment. Perhaps one of our accomplished guests might favor us with a demonstration of their talents. Silence fell as the assembled elite glanced uncomfortably at one another. Despite their many achievements, few were willing to risk public performance. Nathaniel leaned close to Sophia, his breath warm against her ear. "It's time." She turned to him, confusion giving way to dawning comprehension and fear. "Nathaniel." "No." His eyes held hers with unexpected gentleness. "Trust me." And before she could protest further, Nathaniel Reeves stood, drawing every eye in the room. "Mr. Thornfield, my guest would be honored to provide this evening's entertainment." The moment of truth 5. 100 pairs of eyes turned toward Sophia as Nathaniel's words hung in the air. The weight of their collective gaze, curious, skeptical, already dismissive, pressed against her chest until breathing seemed an impossible luxury. She remained frozen in her seat, the midnight silk of her gown suddenly too tight, too conspicuous. "Miss Patel," Carlton Thornfield said with polite doubt, "you're a musician?" "She is," Nathaniel answered before she could deny it. He extended, his hand to her, his expression one she had never seen before. Not the calculating CEO or the demanding boss, but something almost tender. "Sophia, show them." In that moment, the years collapsed between who she was now and who she had been before student loans and her father's illness, before practicality had replaced passion, before she'd locked away the music that once defined her. She took Nathaniel's hand and rose, moving toward the stage as if in a dream. The grand piano waited, its polished ebony surface reflecting the crystalline chandeliers above. Sophia sat, adjusting the bench with hands that trembled slightly. She placed her fingers on the cool ivory keys, remembering the weight and resistance of much older keys in the community center where she had practiced as a child. The only Indian girl among the wealthy students whose parents could afford private lessons. She closed her eyes, shutting out the bemused expressions of tech billionaires and celebrities, and began to play. The first notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune floated through the ballroom. Delicate, haunting, familiar enough to be recognized, but performed with such unexpected nuance that conversations stilled one by one. Sophia's fingers moved with growing confidence, muscle memory awakening. After years of dormancy, the piece built gradually, her body swaying slightly as she surrendered to the music, allowing it to flow through her rather than from her. As the final notes of Debussy faded, she transitioned without pause into a jazz improvisation, complex, spirited, technically demanding. The room, already attentive, shifted forward in collective surprise. This was no amateur performance, no party trick. The transformation was visible in the expressions around the room, from patronizing tolerance to genuine astonishment. And then, most unexpected of all, Sophia began to sing. Her voice started soft, almost hesitant, a folk melody her grandmother had taught her, sung in Hindi, its ancient poetry speaking of longing and return. Her voice gained strength as she continued, rich and soulful, carrying emotions that transcended language barriers. She had arranged it herself years ago, blending classical Western piano with the traditional Indian melody, creating something uniquely her own. When she finally ended, the silence was absolute. Then Carlton Thornfield rose to his feet, applauding with genuine enthusiasm. Others followed, first a few, then dozens, then the entire assembly standing in ovation. Some dabbed at tears, others simply stared in wonder. Sophia looked up, dazed by the response, and found Nathaniel's gaze across the room. He remained seated, watching her with quiet intensity, the barest smile touching his lips. "Extraordinary," breathed Carlton into the microphone as Sophia rose from the piano bench. "Truly extraordinary. Miss Patel, where have you been hiding such remarkable talent?" She approached the microphone, suddenly aware of her racing heart. "Behind an executive desk, Mr. Thornfield," she said with unexpected confidence. "Sometimes life takes us on different paths than we imagined." The remainder of the evening transformed entirely. People who had barely acknowledged Sophia hours earlier now approached with genuine interest, not because she was Nathaniel Reeves's guest, but because she had revealed herself as someone of substance. Composers, music producers, and arts patrons pressed business cards into her hand. Vivian Bennett, whose dismissiveness had been so evident earlier, now engaged her in earnest conversation about her musical background. "You must have had extensive training," Vivian said, genuine respect having replaced her earlier condescension. 12 years of classical piano, and I studied vocal performance at the conservatory before I had to withdraw," Sophia admitted. "What happened?" "Life. Responsibilities, reality." She shrugged lightly. Music doesn't always pay the bills. As the night progressed, Sophia found herself separated from Nathaniel, who watched from a distance as she navigated her unexpected moment in the spotlight. It was nearly midnight when she finally made her way back to him, finding him alone on the terrace overlooking the Pacific. "You knew," she said simply, joining him at the stone balustrade. He turned, moonlight silvering the angles of his face. "I suspected. I overheard you playing once, months ago. The maintenance staff had moved the old piano from the 14th floor to storage, and you thought the executive level was empty that Sunday." Sophia remembered that day. The irresistible pull of the piano she'd discovered while dropping off urgent contracts, the risk she'd taken in playing just one piece before returning to work. "You never mentioned it." "Some things deserve the right moment." His eyes held hers. "You deserve the right moment, Sophia." Unveiled histories. "Why did you really bring me here tonight?" Sophia asked, the question that had haunted her since receiving the golden invitation, finally finding voice in the relative privacy of Nathaniel's limousine. The gala had ended an hour past midnight, leaving her exhilarated and exhausted in equal measure. Nathaniel gazed out at the coastline as they wound their way back to the Ellison Hotel. His profile was sharp against the darkness, moonlight catching occasionally in the angles of his face as they passed beneath breaks in the trees. "I told you, you deserved recognition." "That's not all." She turned toward him, emboldened by the night's success and perhaps by the 2 glasses of champagne she'd allowed herself after her performance. "You could have given me a bonus or a promotion. Instead, you orchestrated this." She gestured to her gown, to the evening behind them. "Why?" For several moments, only the soft purr of the engine filled the silence. Then Nathaniel shifted, turning to face her fully. "My mother was a pianist," he said quietly. "Not professionally, though she could have been. She gave it up to marry my father and support his career. By the time I was old enough to understand what she had sacrificed, it was too late." The bitterness had already calcified. Sophia remained silent, sensing the rarity of this glimpse into Nathaniel's closely guarded personal history. Their marriage was... He paused, choosing his words with characteristic precision. Hollow. My father saw her as an asset, an accessory to his success. She saw herself the same way eventually. I watched her diminish year by year, until there was almost nothing left of the woman she might have been. I'm sorry, Sophia said, softly. When I heard you play that Sunday, I recognized something I hadn't seen since childhood, that total surrender to music, that glimpse of someone's essential self. His eyes, usually so calculating, held something more complex. And I recognized something else, too. The same pattern beginning. You, diminishing yourself to serve someone else's vision. Your vision. Yes. He acknowledged this with unexpected candor. I built Horizon with the belief that innovation matters above all else. I've demanded excellence, commitment, sacrifice, first from myself, then from everyone around me. That's what success requires, Sophia said. Is it? Nathaniel's gaze drifted back to the window. My father died believing that, worth billions, respected by many, loved by none, not even, in the end, by the woman who gave up everything for him. The limousine turned into the circular drive of the Ellison, its tires crunching softly on the gravel. My mother died last year, Nathaniel continued, his voice so low Sophia had to lean closer to hear. Her collection of unrealized possibilities died with her. I found her journals after the funeral, thousands of pages of compositions she'd written but never performed, arrangements she'd created but kept hidden, a lifetime of silenced music. Understanding dawned slowly as Sophia absorbed his words. So tonight was... what? Your attempt to prevent me from becoming your mother. Tonight was my recognition that success built on the buried dreams of others is no success at all. He turned to her as the car stopped. I don't want your talent on my conscience, Sophia. I don't want to be my father. The driver opened Nathaniel's door, and the spell of intimate confession broke. They walked in silence through the hotel's opulent lobby to the elevators. Only when they reached the hall where their respective suites waited did Sophia speak again. I chose my path, she said firmly. Nobody forced me to abandon music. My father's medical bills, my sister's education. Those were responsibilities I accepted willingly. I know. Nathaniel's voice softened. That selflessness is part of who you are. But choice implies options, Sophia. Tonight I wanted you to... remember that you still have them. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope, handing it to her. Consider this a more meaningful recognition than a performance bonus. Inside her suite, Sophia opened the envelope to find documents establishing a substantial trust in her name, enough to fund her sister's remaining education, settle her father's medical debts, and provide Sophia herself with the freedom to pursue whatever path she chose. Accompanying it was a handwritten note. This is not charity or severance. It is restoration of choices taken by circumstance. What you do with it is entirely yours to decide. She sank onto the edge of the bed, the papers, trembling in her hands, torn between gratitude and something that felt dangerously like loss. Beyond gilded cages, morning light streamed through the windows of Nathaniel's suite at the Ellison, where he stood reviewing acquisition projections on his tablet. A knock at the door interrupted his concentration. 3 precise taps he recognized. Immediately. Enter, he called, setting aside the device. Sophia appeared in the doorway, no longer in evening finery but in the crisp business attire she favored at the office. Her hair was pulled back in its usual neat style, yet something fundamental had shifted in her demeanor, a subtle confidence, a presence that commanded attention rather than deflecting it. We need to talk, she said, closing the door behind her. About the trust. He nodded, having anticipated this conversation. If the amount makes you uncomfortable, it's not about the money. She approached, stopping several feet away. It's about what happens now. Nathaniel gestured toward the sitting area, and they both took seats, not executive and assistant, but two people navigating unfamiliar terrain. Last night changed things, Sophia began. You engineered a showcase of my abilities, provided financial independence, and effectively removed every practical barrier keeping me at Horizon Technologies. Her dark eyes studied him with new directness. It appears you're trying to set me free, Mr. Reeves. Nathaniel, he corrected softly. And yes, that was my intention. Why? I explained that last night. No. She leaned forward. You explained why you wanted me to reconnect with music. You didn't explain why you seem so determined to sever our professional relationship? The question caught him off guard, unusual for a man who prided himself on anticipating every variable, every outcome. I assumed you would want to pursue music again. The contacts you made last night alone could launch a remarkable second career. That's not an answer. Nathaniel rose, moving to the window to collect his thoughts. Beyond the glass, the Pacific stretched endlessly, reminding him of his mother's favorite Debussy piece, the one Sophia had played with such haunting beauty. When two people work as closely as we have, he finally said, certain boundaries become essential. You've been indispensable to me, Sophia. But last night, watching you perform, he paused, searching for words precise enough to convey the complexity of his realization. I recognized that my feelings have evolved beyond what's appropriate for our working relationship. Sophia's sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the room. So this trust, this showcasing of my talent, it's your way of removing temptation. A note of anger colored her voice. Creating distance because you've developed inconvenient feelings? It's my way of ensuring you have genuine choices. He turned to face her. Any relationship with substantial power imbalance cannot be truly consensual. As your employer, as someone who controls your livelihood, I can never be certain that any personal connection between us would be your uncoerced choice. Understanding softened her expression. So you're trying to eliminate the power imbalance? Yes. She rose, crossing to stand before him. Has it occurred to you that I might want a voice in decisions that affect my life? That setting me free without consultation is itself a form of control. The irony struck him forcefully. I hadn't considered that perspective. Clearly. A smile touched her lips, not the polite professional smile he was accustomed to, but something warmer, more genuine. For a brilliant man, you have remarkable blind spots, Nathaniel. She moved to the coffee table and placed an envelope beside his tablet. My counter-proposal. Inside, he found a detailed plan for restructuring her role at Horizon, not an exit strategy, but an evolution. She had outlined a new position as creative director for the Horizon Foundation, the company's philanthropic arm, focused on arts education initiatives in underserved communities. The position would remove her from direct reporting to Nathaniel while keeping her within the organization. This allows me to use both my organizational skills and my musical background, she explained. It provides appropriate professional distance without severance, and it gives me time to explore music again without abandoning the career I've built. Nathaniel studied the proposal with growing admiration. You developed this overnight? I had most of it drafted weeks ago, actually. At his surprised look, she continued, You're not the only one who's been reconsidering boundaries, Nathaniel. I've been contemplating a transition for some time. I just needed the courage to propose it. And last night gave you that courage. Last night reminded me who I am. She held his gaze steadily, All of who I am, not just the assistant or the musician, but the woman capable of charting her own course. Nathaniel felt something shift between them, respect deepening into something more complex, more equal. The foundation would be fortunate to have you. Then we have an agreement? We do. He extended his hand formally, and she took it, but neither immediately let go. And what about the other matter? Sophia asked quietly. The inconvenient feelings you mentioned. His hand tightened slightly around hers. Those would be addressed after an appropriate transition period. Perhaps 6 months of your new role, establishing your independence within the organization? 6 months. She considered this. That seems reasonable. A proper cooling-off period to ensure any future. Decisions are made with clear boundaries and expectations. Exactly. Sophia smiled, a genuine, radiant expression that transformed her face. I should warn you, I intend to use those 6 months to become utterly indispensable to the foundation. You may find yourself negotiating with a much more formidable version of me when that cooling-off period ends. I look forward to it, Nathaniel replied, returning her smile with a rare one of his own. I've always appreciated a worthy challenge. As they finalized the details of their agreement, sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating possibilities neither had dared acknowledge before. A future where talents need not be sacrificed, where power could be balanced rather than surrendered, and where two people might find their way to each other not through obligation or control, but through mutual recognition of each other's essential worth. Outside, the Pacific stretched toward the horizon, vast, deep, and full of unexplored wonders, much like the potential that now lay before them.